What's up YouTube, this is URC Shadow, and welcome to the 9th and definitely the most difficult lesson of the GTA Online Flight School, Collect Flags. Now in this lesson we'll be using a Bezra, and we need to collect all 30 flags dotted around the city of Los Santos within a certain time limit. It's an incredibly challenging lesson because a lot of the flags are in between buildings, low down at street level, high up on top of the skyscrapers, basically dotted around all over the place. So you can go into this lesson just going nuts trying to collect all the flags as you see them, or you can attempt to learn a route to collect the flags in a particular order to save you time flying back on yourself, which will bring down your total time and hopefully get you a gold medal. So this is going to be a pretty long video compared to the other videos I have for these lessons. So what I've done for this video is design a route that isn't the fastest in the world. There are faster ones out there, however this is definitely be geared towards as easy as possible, with the least chance of flying into buildings and having to restart the whole lesson again, but a still efficient enough route that you can miss one or two checkpoints, loop round, pick them up again, and still stand a chance of getting the gold medal. So looking at the map, here are all 30 checkpoints that we'll need to pick up, and we'll be starting from the bottom left hand corner. What I'll do is I'll split the route into 5 different sections, sections A, B, C, D and E, and we'll go through each section at a time so you can learn the route bit by bit, practice it as you go, and hopefully by the end you'll have the gold medal. However, at the end of this video I'll also put the entire uninterrupted beginning to end 2-minute 10-second route so that you can see uninterrupted how to complete it. So firstly, looking at section A, which are the dots in red, these checkpoints are all focused in the bottom left hand corner over the marina and heading into the city. Section B will clear up all the checkpoints on the left hand side of the highway. All the buildings around here are relatively low level, so there's not really many skyscrapers getting in the way. Section C then takes us into the proper downtown area. We'll be concentrating on mostly the high level checkpoints on top of the skyscrapers before swooping downtown to ground level. And then section D is picking up some of the more fiddly bits down at the mid and ground levels. And then a relatively straightforward section E to finish off the last few and then any we may have missed. So to overlay, here's the route that we'll be taking, starting from the bottom left hand corner, travelling upwards. I wouldn't expect you to obviously remember the route or anything like that based on this little squiggle. This is just to give you an indication of the approach we'll be using. Okay, so looking at section A first, I'll put a little Bezra icon following the path as the video goes through this section, just so you can see where we are. Now feel free to pause and obviously rewind as you go through and practice this section. Another important point to note is that you do not need to be on the full throttle the entire time. In fact, I'd say up to half the time, I'm not even using the accelerator. You want to glide, slow down, and give yourself as much time to maneuver and spot your next flag as possible. Now you want to avoid using the brakes, however, because if you start using the brakes, which is L2 or the bigger left-hand button on the Xbox, you will start to fall out the sky and you'll lose control of your plane. So to indicate when I'm using full throttle, I'll put full power on the screen, and when I'm not using full throttle and I'm just gliding, it will disappear. Just again to give you an indication of what I'm doing as I'm going around the course. And one last thing before we start, to get a gold medal for this lesson, you need to complete it in 2 minutes 40. Now with this route, I've done it in 2 minutes 10 and 2 minutes 11, and that included both times missing one checkpoint and having to loop round and get it again, which means you can do this route faster, and you still have 30 seconds to play with on top of what I've done and still get the gold medal. You're of course free to try and YouTube people that have set world record times, you know, in 1 minute 30, stuff like that, but as you'll see from those videos, the routes are very difficult, very challenging, you have to be inch perfect, and it's very risky. So this is a much more reliable way to get gold, but it's not going to get you any world records. Okay, so starting up the video, and again, you can pause whenever you need to because we're going to be looking at 2 places at once, the icon on the map and the video on the right hand side. So we're in the starting point, we're heading towards the first checkpoint, we need to gain a bit of altitude, full power obviously this entire time. Now as soon as we go through that checkpoint, we're going to dive down and we're going to come off the power. We're going to go onto our left hand knife edge, through the next checkpoint, we're going to do a tight turn left, and then we're going to switch to a right hand side knife edge, and then do a tight turn right. We're going to pretty much come around 180 degrees, loop over to this next building, grab this one on top, dive down again, pick up this checkpoint, and as we're about to go through it, get on the power again. And then the last checkpoint of this section is then straight in front of us. Okay, so you may want to watch that a few times, go back and practice it. It is a lot to take in at once, I appreciate. So at the end of each section, we're going to take a quick look at things to watch out for in that section that may be the main cause for you to restart. So in section A, it's right at the beginning, we've done the left hand knife edge, we've done the right hand knife edge, and as we're coming around the 180 to get to that building on top, there is this massive black billboard advertising tower thing that's just sitting there in the middle of our path. Now you are a little bit blind to it because you're turning so tightly, so after running into it a few times you may work out that you need to just be a little bit higher as you're going around this corner, or you need to take it a little bit wider or a little bit tighter to avoid it. Other than that, this is really the only main obstacle for this section. Okay, so once you've mastered section A, moving on to section B. So again, just to recap, This is clearing up all the other left-hand side checkpoints, and the buildings around this area are pretty low level compared to the rest of downtown. So we'll bring up the bezer again, and we'll start the video. We're heading into this full power, but pretty soon we're going to cut the power, go onto right-hand side knife edge, and feed it in between these two buildings. Watch out for the little tower thing that's sitting in the middle. We'll come back to that later. And then we're basically going to grab this one here, tight turn, full power down to this one here, and then this is nice and easy, straight forwards, pick up the one here, make sure you go underneath or around the crane, and then this is a tricky bit. So this is, you will definitely come off the full power here. If anything, this is the only point in the whole course where I add a little bit of braking. And as I mentioned before, you don't want to brake too much. If you do, you'll pretty much fall like a stone out of the sky. So this is going to be a really tight turn. We're on the right hand side knife edge. We start turning as we go through it. We try and come down a bit more as well to grab this one on the road. And pretty much as soon as it's looking like we're in a good position, we want to power out of this, get round the turn, and then get as much altitude as possible before we crash into the road. After that, the next checkpoint is quite far away. It's on top of this, probably the tallest building in this whole area, which you want to just fly towards. Hit that, straight over it, and then towards the highway, ready for the next one. So as you kind of mentioned earlier, the only thing really to watch out for, besides perhaps the crane as well, is again the beginning of the section. It says you're on the right hand side knife edge, going between the two buildings. There is a sort of old circle tower thing in the middle that you can't see until you go through the two buildings. Now obviously the height of the checkpoint has been put there on purpose to try and make you run into it. So the only thing I'd say is take a slightly shallower turn so you don't run into it, or just try and gain some altitude straight after the checkpoint. Okay, section C, nearly halfway there. Section C is pretty fun. We're mostly going to be grabbing the checkpoints from the top of the skyscrapers. There is one, I hasten to say the word tricky, part. It's definitely fun. Gives you a real thrill trying to pull off this maneuver we're going to be doing midway through the section. But you'll see what we mean as we get to it. So bring up the video, and we're at full power, heading across the highway towards this black building on the other side of the highway. We're going to put ourselves into a gentle turn so that we go through the checkpoint as we're turning, and then we're heading back towards the city, ready for the next one. Because the next checkpoint we're going to is on top of this big black shiny building in front of us. Notice how I'm not actually using full power now. I'm just off the power, gently cruising, making sure I hit the checkpoint. And this is the fun bit. This is the bit I love doing every single time. So I'll pause it here. As you can see in front of us, the checkpoint is in between the top of this construction skyscraper and below the crane. So which means we're going to have to thread in between it. Relatively nice and easy. However, the next checkpoint is now down at ground level on our left hand side. So this is the real fun bit. What we want to do, and you don't have to do this, but it is obviously the most efficient way to do it. And like I said, it is really fun to do, and you feel really good when you pull it off. You want to go inverted, and then as soon as you hit the checkpoint, you want to down and left towards the ground. And I'll show you what that means because it's hard to explain. Like that. Obviously I got a little bit messy here, and round. And once we've done that, we're heading towards this checkpoint here, which is going to lead us nicely to the next one, which is in between two buildings. This is a little bit of a challenge. Again, left hand side knife edge, in between them, going for this next checkpoint. As soon as we've hit that checkpoint, we're then coming round 90 degrees, losing a bit of altitude as we go to get the next one down at ground level. And this is the last checkpoint for this section. So what can go wrong in section C? Well, really, the only one that ever kept going wrong for me was threading in between those two buildings. So here we go, going inverted again, getting down to street level, grabbing that checkpoint, and then basically just getting too close to these buildings as I was trying to knife edge to them. Other than that, there isn't actually that much to go wrong unless you're going to fly into the crane right before you go inverted, which I could see as potentially being a common problem, but in my whole 2 hours I was doing this thing, I never once did. Maybe I just got lucky. So, section D, nearly there now. Section D has some tricky little points. So again, this is the route, relatively short. There's only 6 checkpoints in this section. So where we left off from section C, we're heading at ground level towards this next one. We're going straight for it, and then we're doing a tight up and left turn, and we're heading towards this next building in front of us, and then if possible we're going to dive down and grab the one on top of the white building next. I think I actually missed it here. I did. So this is an example of where I've missed a checkpoint, because it is a little bit challenging to do. So we have to loop round and come back for that later. And obviously I still completed this in 2 minutes 10 with 30 seconds to spare, so it's not the end of the world if you do this. So we're heading into the city. We're also going to ignore the checkpoint on the left hand side, because if we try and get that at this angle, we'll go straight into the wall. So head into the city, you'll see another one right down here amongst the trees by the bottom of the maze tower. We'll grab that one on the knife edge, turning 90 degrees left, and then killing your engines and climbing to reach the top of this black building here. As you can see, the checkpoint is just on top of it, so we're not using any throttle for this because we'll just shoot straight over the building. We want to get up and then come down on top of it as nimbly as possible. And that's end of section D. Again, so what can go wrong here? Well, that big red skyscraper we saw earlier, for some reason seems to be a magnet with my plane. I flew into that quite a few times. I have no idea why I struggle with this building so much, I just did. There we go. So, section E. This is clearing up the really last few little checkpoints. There's only 4 left, and one of those is because we missed it earlier. This is a nice simple go around in a semicircle, grabbing the last 3 we missed before going up to the final finish checkpoint. So here we are grabbing the checkpoint on top of the white building that we missed earlier. Then we're going for that one in the construction site that we flew past earlier because we wouldn't be able to get it at that angle. And then we're full power for the final checkpoint in between these 2 buildings and on top of this mast tower thing in front of us. And there we go, gold star. So anyway guys, as I mentioned at the beginning, now I'm going to show you the complete route uninterrupted from beginning to end of a 2-minute 10-second run. So having watched the first half of this video, hopefully you have an understanding of the general approach to each section and the things to avoid in those sections. And then hopefully in this second half of the video, you'll be able to use this to try and memorise the circuit and the route you need to take. One other thing that will really help you for this lesson is having a maxed out flying stat. Now if you're a relatively low level, there isn't much you can do about this. Your choice is to try the lesson anyway, or to go away in free mode, grab a plane and fly around for a few hours, building up your max flying stat. What the max flying stat does is reduce the turbulence, making your plane easier to fly. However, it is important to note that after patch 1.17, Rockstar have reduced the effect that having a max flying stat makes. So in effect, if you have a max flying stat, it's a little bit more challenging now post the 1.17 patch, and if you're not a max flying stat, they've effectively made it a little bit easier for you. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and at the end of the video there'll be links to all the other lessons for the flight school, and of course you're welcome to check out all my other mission strategy guides, speedruns and tips and tricks videos. Cheers guys, thanks for watching.
You got it. Looking good. Keep this up and we'll go all out. Keep going, Dooley. You got another flag. That's the flag. Cadet's got a flag. You're way out in front of this. Bring it home. How many more can you get? One step closer.